Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity C# Bitesize tutorial. You're probably already used to using lists and arrays in Unity to store collections of data, but we'll also be covering queues, dictionaries, and stacks as well. I'll be explaining what they are and how to use them. I hope you're looking forward to it. Let's get started. But before we get into the video, I want to mention that my new Udemy course on how to make a tower defense game in Unity has now been released. I've put a link to the Udemy page down below so you can go check out the promo video and see if you're at all interested. And if you're watching this video when it comes out, there's a 1-week giveaway going on, so that next week we'll be picking 5 lucky winners to receive the course for free. Thanks for sticking around and hearing me out. Let's get to the video. So let's start off with arrays and lists before we get into the more complex types of dictionaries, queues, and stacks. I guess one of the main reasons you're probably used to using these two is because they're serializable by Unity. So if we go up here and we make a serialized field, private, and then we can make an array of, for example, integers. Okay, so int array. We make an int array called numbers. Okay, if we just do this, we can actually then head over to Unity. We can go over here and just swap this script out for our new one. So this is the collections example. And you see over here, we now have an array and we can actually set the size. So 10, for example. Now, whenever you change this size, what it's really doing under the hood is it's making a new array. So for example, down here, if we go numbers equals new int array, it asks us for the size. So in reality, whenever we change this number slider, it's actually just doing this, but passing in the new number. So 10, for example, right? So we're making it a new array of size 10. And the way you use arrays like this is that if we want to, for example, change the number in the first slot, we say numbers 0 equals and then 10 or something, right? Or 1 or whatever value you want. Now, the difference is here, with a list, you do .add, or you can do .add, which will add an extra element onto the end, which changes its size. With arrays, you can't just change the size like that. Now, there is a way to resize the array, but we're not going to do that. That's array.resize, like so, okay? But we're not going to jump into that. You aren't advised to use that. If your array does need to change size, you should be using lists. And then for lists, we change this to a list of type int, okay, like this. And then we can't set it equal to a new array, obviously. We could set it equal to a new list. But what Unity actually does is, if I don't set this equal to a new list here, it actually does it for me over in Unity. So now we've got our list. Though it's always safer, and it's actually required that if you don't have it as a serialized field like this, if it's just a private list, then you have to say equals a new list for it to exist. Otherwise, what will happen is if we say this, then we go in start and we say numbers.add 10, we'll get an error inside Unity. I'll just show it really quick just to prove to you. Okay, so we go to Unity, console, press play. What will happen is it'll try and add, and it'll give us an error saying the list doesn't exist, it is null. So just remember you have to initialize it like so. So yeah, the quick recap is basically arrays is fixed size and lists are dynamic. But then what about dictionaries? We'll move on to them next. So a dictionary does not just have one value like this, okay? With a list, you add values, you remove values, and you access them by index, okay? So, you know, numbers 0, and then you can get whatever that is. So we can say like int a equals this, and we go grab whatever number is at the index of 0. With dictionaries, it's kind of different. So to make a dictionary, you change list to dictionary, but it asks you for 2 types. You actually need a key and a value, okay? So how it works is the key has to be unique, and the value can be anything, okay? So if we make the key a string, for example, and then the value an int, then obviously when you make a new dictionary, you do this. So new dictionary string int. What this allows us to do is it allows us to add to it just like a list. Okay, so here you go, numbers.add, but it needs a key and a value, okay? So if we want to add something new, we give it a key and a value. Now, when you add to a list, it's kind of doing this under the hood. Think of it as the key of the list is always the integer for the index. But with this, we can now choose our own. So imagine we do names. So for example, the string might be Nathan and the value might be 10. And then we go numbers.add, and then you do something else, and you pick another number, okay? So you just got to remember that these keys have to be unique. You can't have in the dictionary multiple keys that are the same. The values, however, can be the same. And now if we want to read something from our dictionary, we can say numbers, and then instead of accessing by index like you're used to doing with 0, you can actually do it via key. So if I put in Nathan, well, as a string, so Nathan, then what it's going to do is I can then say, you know, it's now returning the value. So if I say int a equals, it's now going to get me 10 basically. So I can go grab the value for a key. Another thing to note is that dictionaries are not serializable by Unity. So if you try to make this a serialized field private, then you're not going to have it appear in Unity. If we go over, okay, you notice how it doesn't show up. Also with dictionaries, there are some safety measures in. So for example, if you don't know that a certain thing is going to be in the dictionary, it's best to do numbers.try_get_value. Okay, so then you say the key, which would be Nathan. So I try and get the value Nathan, and if there is a value, then I'll call it A, let's say. Okay, then you make this an if. So you say if, and what this means is, okay, I can't use A again because I've already got it here, so let's just get rid of this. So we're saying if the dictionary has a key Nathan, you can now use the value here, okay? So, you know, debug.log A. Go back to Unity, press play, and it should log 10. I think number was the 10. Yeah, 10, okay? So next we'll do the queue. So a queue, you've got to think of it as like a queue in real life, okay? So we'll call it, we'll make a queue of string called names, okay? And think of this as a queue to go and buy some food, okay? The first person into the queue is the first person out of the queue. So what we can do is we can add some people to the queue by enqueuing them. So we can add Nathan, okay? Then we can also add some other people. Let's just go do this. And just change it to be some random strings. Okay, these are all the people in queue. And then what we need to do is when we want to, you know, deal with it. So maybe let's imagine each frame of your game you want to deal with it. Okay, so in the update loop, we can say debug.log names.dequeue. And what dequeue does is it gets you the first thing in the queue and it removes it at the same time. Okay, so dequeue returns a string. That's because it's a string queue. So it's gonna, the first time this gets called, it's gonna return Nathan, so I can log it out, and it'll remove it from the queue. Okay, so it's like dealing with it. So whenever you want to deal with something in order that it was added, you should use a queue. If we go over to Unity, we should notice that for the first 4 frames, I mean, it's actually gonna give us errors. Yeah, okay. So what's happened is we're saying dequeue. So for the first 4 frames, it's fine. But as soon as it's done that, we're now out. Okay, so we should obviously check if names.count is equal to 0, return. Okay, so basically, if there's nothing in there, then return. Otherwise, we want to log the names. So we press play again, and it should work just fine. There we go. Some of you might be thinking, you know, why not just use a list? Because technically, whatever a queue does, a list can do. But it just saves you some of the logic there, because obviously with your list, you'll have to say access index 0, and then you'll have to write another line to remove. It just makes more sense to use a queue if it's going to be like a queue. So an example I have is I have my enemies in my game that I want to spawn in. So imagine there's 10 enemies to spawn in and the spawn rate's half a second. So every half a second, all I do is I just dequeue from here. You know, it's just one line to call. It just dequeues it. It's really simple. So finally, we'll cover stacks now. There are obviously more data types, there's more collections. I could cover them all, but it would take a very, very, very long time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a private stack, okay? Now the difference between a stack and a queue is that stack is first in, last out, okay? So let's make a new stack, string names, we'll just do the same thing, okay? And think of this as you're putting stuff into a box, okay? So everything you put in that box will be at the bottom going up. Then when you start removing stuff from the box, you take from the top, okay? So the stuff that was in first is actually going to be the last stuff out. So on names, we can go names.push. So what you do is you push to a stack, okay? So I'm going to push something onto the stack. We'll add Nathan, okay? So right now I'm at the top and the bottom. Then if we push something else, so names.push, and then we add some other name, okay? Now I'm at the bottom and this one is on top. So when I now go names dot, and then you've got pop, you pop off the top. So when I pop, it's going to do the same as dequeue did for a queue. It's going to return a string. Okay, so it's going to return this and remove it. Okay, so if I, debug.log names.pop. So now after this line is called, what we'll see is we'll see that this has been logged and Nathan is the only thing left in the list. Okay, or in, not the list, sorry, but the stack. Okay, so this is there. And now Nathan is at the top. So if I was to pop again, it'll just pop this one and then Nathan. Okay, so if I go back, press play, and you'll see what happens is that it does this and then it does Nathan. Okay, and one other thing you actually can do with this is you can do what's called peeking. So peek, if we do this, okay, peek will return the value at the top, which is this one, but it won't actually remove it from the stack. Okay, it's just going to tell you the value, but it won't get rid of it. So by doing peek and then pop, it'll actually just do this one twice, and then Nathan will be left in the stack, like so. So before we end the video, I'll quickly mention some uses. So with a stack, you can think of it like a deck of cards. You've got your stack, which is your deck of cards. And then whenever you need your next one, you pop off the top, okay? It's quite a simple example. Then with queues can be used, as I said, for enemy spawning. So imagine there's 10 enemies to be spawned. So on start, you add them all to the queue. and then whenever they need to be spawned, you just dequeue from the front. So for dictionaries, it's whenever you need to access something via a key. So normally you'll access by index, or you might even loop over a list and check each thing in the list to see if it's the one you want, but there are a lot of cases where that's actually more useful to use a dictionary for. Keeping in mind the key and the value can be whatever data type you like. Then obviously for lists and arrays, you use them all the time, it's the most commonly used ones, but as I said, just knowing these data types can be really useful. You might not use them a whole lot, but there will be some cases where it makes sense to, and it'll save you quite a bit of time and effort. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know down below, leave a like and subscribe, let me know what you want to see next. Thanks as always for watching, I'll see you guys next time, and goodbye. But of course, before I go, I've got to thank my patrons. Special thanks to Taylor Rustio, John Salig, Liz Kimber, Drandy, Sam Marcus, Matt Fryer, Jay Colby, LN, Fabian Reno, Malvin, Sunran, David McDermott, Exit, Josh Folsom, Beardodai, Dustin Miller, Rek, Miro Sletter, Hades Orko, Rene, Lucas, and Ilya Moon. If anyone else is able to help support the channel monetarily, links to my patrons down below. If not, there is also links down below to other social media, such as Twitch, Twitter, and Discord, as well as our new course and our website. Just check out all those links down below. It'd be greatly appreciated. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.